Welcome to Conquering Your Clownfish, a podcast dedicated to transforming disabilities into special abilities. I'm your host, Brady Murray. Welcome to the Conquering Your Clownfish podcast. Listeners, get ready to be inspired by our special guest today, Leah Crum. Leah is a young mom to two girls under 2. She was going to school to become a dentist when her oldest daughter, Camilla, was born and surprised them with what she calls a little special needs spice. Leah's life plans shifted, and she has become an unstoppable advocate who helps moms have a safe space to joyfully embrace their reality. Leah, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Super excited to be able to have you. Way excited to be able to visit with you. First and foremost, I just want to compliment you on the great energy and amazing vibe that you have on your social media channel. It's a joy to be able to follow you and to be able to see the great things that you're doing. So thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so glad they were able to connect through there in the community that I've been blessed with as you've been working on growing that platform. It's really been a magical thing.
Yep, it has. It really has. You're doing a great job with that. So this is super fun for me. Andrea and I, my wife, we just celebrated our 22nd year of marriage this week. In fact, just a couple of days ago. And we were looking back at pictures and seeing pictures that are looking a lot like your pictures right now with 2 girls under 2. Okay. So we had Brindley and Nash right back to back as well. And so we had a couple of kids that were 2 and under as well. So it's fun to be able to reminisce back and also speak with someone who's living it right now.
That's so fun. Yeah, it's crazy. Like the chaos never ending, but it's fun to have that level of happiness and energy in your home to just kind of feed off of. I love it. It's crazy, but I love it.
Wonderful. I wanted to ask, let's hear how you and Carson met, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you had a pretty quick engagement. I think that's a fun story to start with.
Yeah. So I was actually going to BYU, Hawaii. I had my mission call and I was going to go to Japan. And 2 weeks after I got my mission call, COVID happened. So they sent everybody home and I postponed my mission for 18 months in hopes of still going to Japan. And I decided to transfer to Provo. And after being there for a little bit, I was thinking, do I really want to go on a mission? Because I'm getting to a point that I would almost be coming home.
Yeah.
I don't know if I still want to go. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to start dating like crazy. Because if I stay, I don't just want to go get my nails done. And that's the highlight on my mission. I want to keep moving forward with my life. So it's like, okay, I'm going to say some prayers. And if I'm supposed to stay here, I want to meet the person that I'm going to get married to. And so I went on heaps of dates and I met Carson at BYU. And then I realized I'm going to marry this guy. So why am I waiting? Why don't we just get married? So we met in March and we ended up getting married in September that year. Crazy fast, but super. Everybody thought we were nuts.
This is really fun because this is actually a similar story to Andrea and I. Andrea did not have a mission call, but she was ready to go on a mission and was preparing her papers. And so for our listeners that are maybe saying, what in the world is a mission? A mission is something that individuals, so young men and young women, ages 18 and 19, typically for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, go and serve for 2 years for young men and 18 months for young women. And it's a beautiful service opportunity. I actually had an opportunity to serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Peru. I served there for 2 years. And so I was sharing this very similar experience to Andrea and I. She was ready to go on her mission. At that time, she had to wait till she's 21 before she could go. And she was just about 21 when we met. We met in November and we were married in June. So pretty quick turnaround like yours as well.
Yeah, so fun. We were like, what are we waiting for? You're my best friend together. Let's just get married. We announced we were going to get married in December. And then we were thinking, why are we getting married finals week? That's going to be terrible.
That's smart. Yeah, that's smart. Good for you. So you were going to school and you wanted to become a dentist. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm a huge nerd. When I was 13, I wanted to be a dentist so bad. And we were living in Saudi Arabia at the time, and there was lots of goat jaws everywhere on the beach. It's kind of gross, but I'm a total nerd. like, can I please take it home? And I'd like pop the teeth out and look at them and like figure out how they worked and how they connected. And I loved it. I loved like how that related to our lives. And I always thought it would be so cool to work in that, to help people feel comfortable and to feel confident in their mouths and in their smile and in eating and all of that. I loved it. And so when we moved back to the States, I started shadowing, even though I was just in high school, and I doubled up on my sciences. I graduated 13th in my class in high school and then got a full scholarship to study biochemistry in college. And I loved it. It was the best. I started working in pediatric dentistry a year before I had Camilla. And it was just the most rewarding job I've ever had. I absolutely loved it. And then she was born, and overnight, the dream that I'd had for nearly a decade, I just didn't want it anymore. It's like, I have this kid who needs me. Like, this is so much more important to me than root canals. Things just kind of got put into perspective of, I love helping people, but I want to help my kid more than I want to help other people's kids. And I want to make sure that I can be there for her. So I ended up switching, and I'm really grateful for that dream that God planted in my heart, because it exposed me to lots of science things as I was going through school of human physiology, human anatomy, and it helped me keep up in the NICU a lot as the doctors were talking, and it helped me be a lot more confident in my advocating. Lots of doctors like to hit me with, oh, you're a young mom. Did you do some Googling before you came in? That's Googling. We actually went to school for this, so you just need to not be nervous and to trust us because we want what's best for your kid. We know you're scared. And it was nice to be like, no, I didn't Google this, actually. This is in my textbook. And I saw this in my cadaver lab. I know this. Don't gaslight me into thinking I don't know anything. I just Googled this in the parking lot before I walked in. I have really good GPA. Do you want me to pull out my transcript? I kind of know what I'm talking about. And so it was a huge blessing. I'm really glad that God planted that in my heart. But the first week that she was born, I was definitely like, why did I put work into this dream that like I don't want anymore? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I actually was just at my oldest daughter's graduation. So we had just had our first child, just graduated from high school, and she goes to a Christian-based school, and the speaker shared something that resonated so much with me that I think is exactly what happened to you. He talked about how God educated his desires.
Yeah.
Educated his desires. And you look at your situation, and you had, you're a very goal-oriented individual. You had your eyes set on the prize. And then when Camilla was introduced into your life, that was actually a question that I had, was that hard to give that up? It certainly wasn't, because I believe God educated your desires, and look at what a great preparation that was for entering into this unique journey that you're on right now.
Yeah, it was a huge blessing, especially because I had so many different doctors coming in and talking to me. And we've had some good doctors, and we've had some doctors that convinced me that the lessons on bedside manner are just a lesson on how to steadily gaslight. They're really not kind sometimes. And I'm super grateful for the network that it also put me in, that I've had professors that I studied microbiology with, and I studied immunity with, and that I could take her labs and send them to somebody I had a trusting relationship with and be like, can you please help me comb through this genetics report? I'm pretty sure I understand it, but they're telling me I need to do this, and I don't feel comfortable with that treatment plan. Can you help me go through it? And I had a third party that I already trusted that was not going to make any money off of me. I know that there's nothing else in it for them. And it was such a huge blessing to have all of these peers and advisors and everybody around me to have worked in dentistry and to have those connections with people who are very science oriented and willing to creatively problem solve. I had this huge team around me to help me advocate for Camilla. I really think that helped me grow into advocating consistently for her, because even after the NICU, I still do that all the time. And where I don't necessarily need all that support because I had so much of it at the beginning.
Definitely. I've learned that from firsthand experience. And I think a lot of families that are on this special needs journey realize that not all doctors and professionals are created equal. Just because they have a degree or they are wearing the white coat, they have the degree on the wall, doesn't necessarily mean they're all created equal. And so good on you for being able to be such an advocate for Camilla, I want to ask, you're such a naturally upbeat and just positive person, and you are truly an unstoppable advocate for your daughter and for your family. But upon receiving diagnosis, how was that for you? And was that something that you just said, you know what, like this is what I'm charged with, and here we go? Or how was that process?
Oh my gosh. So she was born and they told us, like, I mean, she was born and they were like, 12:10, baby's out. You know, I had a C-section and the room's just silent. And I hear all these footsteps going out. And all of a sudden, my husband's gone, Carson's gone. And I'm like literally tied to this table. I don't know the doctor who's assisting. It was totally last minute. And he came back and was just like, I'm asking him all these questions. And he's just like, I don't know. And it was either that day or the next day. It's all kind of a blur. This doctor came up to us and said, like, hey, we did this fatty acid chain test. We don't think she's going to live longer than 5 days. And we want you to have some closure if she dies to know why. And I was like, oh my gosh. So like, this can't be real. And then we go up and visit her, and the nurses are like, we don't know what's going on. We get all of these calls in the middle of the night of Camilla's left lung is collapsing. We don't know why. We need you to sign off on this thing that's kind of experimental. We have no idea if it's going to work, but we've tried everything else. And then 3 hours later, we'd get another call being like, her right lung's collapsed. We'd be like, what happened to the left? Oh, suddenly it's fine. We don't know what's going on, but her right lung is not. And it was just crazy, crazy, crazy. I didn't hold her for 5 days. First time I held her was while they were prepping her life flight. And they flew her to go get heart surgery. And we got to that hospital and they didn't want to do heart surgery. And it was just absolutely crazy. And it was like, is my baby going to be alive tomorrow? And it was super hard. And so when we got like a diagnosis, it wasn't really a diagnosis. It was MRI results of them looking at her brain. It was so emotional because we're like, wait a minute, is she fine? Like, you're talking about when she's 3. Are we going to have her till she's 3? Like, shut up, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're like telling us she's never going to lift her head by herself. She's not going to hold her head by herself until she's 3. She's never going to walk. She's never going to talk. She's never going to. And so we're getting this terrible news, but we're also like, wait a minute, are we going to go home with a baby? Like, are we going to put a kid in the back of our car and we're going to drive her home? Like, that's dope. So it was this huge emotional roller coaster. And I just went into this, like, this can't be my life. Like, someone switched my baby. I've been pranked. This is not my life. And I remember the MRI team being, and I was just sitting there crying. Like, I don't even know what to make of this. Like, I was holding Camilla for the first time, like 5 days in, as they're preparing life flight. Everybody's running around. Alarms are going off. That morning, we'd gotten a call of our bedside nurse. She's like, hey, this is Anita. You need to get here. And we're like, what's wrong? We've been getting all these calls through the night of, left lung's collapsing, right lung's collapsing. We don't know what's going on with her heart, but it's really enlarged and none of our medications are working. And it's just very obvious that her needs could not be met at this hospital, that they were just drowning, trying to do everything that they could. So I get this call, I wake up to it. You need to get here. And I'm just thinking, crap, I'm still in a wheelchair. I can't even get myself dressed. What is happening? And thankfully, my parents had stayed the night with us. And so Carson got himself ready. And I remember like laying on my bed as my mom put my pants on me and being like, I hate this. I hate this so much. Like, my dad is an Army Ranger. And so growing up, whenever there was something really hard, my dad would be like, do some push-ups. And look, you hate push-ups and you're getting better at them. You can do things you hate. And you can do things that are uncomfortable and you can get better at them. And I'm like, man, my scrawny arms really need to do some push-ups right now to prove that I can do hard things. And I can't even get myself dressed. I'm 21 years old. My mom's putting my pants on me like I'm 2. This is terrible. And I just feel so inadequate. And when we got her results back about her MRI, they're telling us all of these things. And she's never going to walk. She's never going to talk. They told us that she would never have object recognition. So she would never be able to see her crib and know that's called a crib and it's where I sleep. Never gonna have that. And so then I'm thinking, is she ever gonna know me? Like, will she ever see me and be like, that's my mom? And then they're telling us these things about, she won't hold her head up by herself until she's 3. And then I'm thinking, wait a minute, like, we get to keep her till she's 3 because I thought we only had 5 days. Like, that's pretty good news, but you're saying it like it's bad. And our whole room was full of doctors. It's like they brought every med student in there to be like, watch how we deliver bad news. Like, it was so terrible. And when they finally left, I just remember sitting there on the other side and Carson being like, do you want to hold her? And I was like, no, like that can't be my baby. Like, I had all these plans. I have this patriarchal blessing. Like, I know God has so much in store for me. How am I supposed to work? How am I supposed to travel? How am I supposed to have a social life with a kid that needs so much? Like, that can't be my kid. There's no way. And I remember just watching Carson standing by her crib and like rubbing her forehead because she had so many things on her. It's really the only part of her that we could rub, and just like massaging her little head and being like, don't worry, Mom, we're going to be a team and we're going to help you. And just being like, oh, I'm such a lucky mom because I have a really good husband. And I just felt so robbed and cheated. And we didn't have insurance for the first 5 days that Camilla was born. And so we were already well past the cost of our degrees and just bills. Like, we're going to be broke for the rest of our lives. And we needed to eat lunch that day. We were like, we need to eat. We're not hungry, but we should so that we can keep going for her. And we decided to go to Chick-fil-A. And the person at Chick-fil-A in front of us paid for our meal. And it was like, oh, it hit my heart so much because we got to the window and we were like, ooh, hopefully when our card swipes, they say, you're good, man. Like, they're not like, fine, this is awkward, you know? And we're like, we have space on our credit card, you know? Like, we're just broke college kids. And we get up there and Carson goes to pass them his card and they're like, no, you're good, man. And we're like, what? And they're like, yeah, you're good. They already got you. And we just like pulled into the first parking spot and both we're like, okay, God loves us and God is chocolate shakes. We're going to be okay. Like, this is going to be really hard, but we have chocolate shakes. God knows us. He loves us. He cares about us. He wants us to be happy. Life is going to be sweet. Like, people are going to help us. It's going to be okay. Like, we're not alone. We don't have to do this alone. And so getting her diagnosis was a huge thing for me that I had to, like, I felt really robbed and cheated. I had to figure out, like, do I believe that God knows me? Do I believe that he loves me? Do I believe the scriptures are true and that men are that they might have joy? Do I believe that the enabling power of the atonement applies to me? Did Christ die for everyone and not me? Like, am I included in that? And I had to figure out a lot of things regarding my faith. And is this something that I've been telling myself just to feel a little less alone as a speck floating around on a rock in the middle of nowhere? Or is there actually a God out there who knows me and who loves me and who created universes and asked me to call him Father? Like, that's a really big theme. And like, deciding how I really felt about my faith was the absolute key to accepting her diagnosis for me. So if God loves me, then this life isn't just going to be okay. Things aren't going to get better. It's going to be great.
I could not agree more. That is a beautiful, beautiful explanation of how you entered into this very special journey. I was pondering as you were talking, we're only, I mean, Camilla is two and how many months now? And so we're not years in, you're still months into this.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You're still months into this. And so fast forward now, we're only months into this. You seem to have really turned a corner when you made that connection with your faith. And so I would love to hear how you feel right now. And I'd love to hear how you feel looking
forward. Yeah. So I am super grateful. Heavenly Father knows me really well. I am someone that I need a kick in the pants. I really, truly do. Like, that is my motivating thing. And lots of times I feel really tired. I feel super tired. We just got Camilla's evaluation for a communication device. These people were telling me that she couldn't have a communication device until she was in consistent speech therapy. But they didn't want to put her in consistent speech therapy until she was 3. And then they wanted to do an eval after she'd been in that for a year. And then it takes 6 to 9 months to get your device. So they don't want to give her a voice until she was 5. And so since September, I've been fighting them on that. And that's a long time to just keep calling the same people and keep asking and just keep going. And lots of times I'm really tired. And lots of times I say prayers like, my Father, I need some extra energy. And then I put on some David Goggins and do my little exercise and listen to some
push-ups. We are cut from the same cloth on this. This is really fun. My kids, if they listen to this, will get a chuckle because I'm the same way when they're having a little bit of a tough time, they're facing some adversity, that's a great time to go do some push-ups. That's the last thing you want to do. So that's exactly what you should do. So this is kind of fun. Yeah, this is fun.
Like, I'll do my makeup listening to him being like, positive affirmations are stupid. If you're dumb, look in the mirror and tell yourself you're dumb and then go get educated. That's what I listen to when I get ready. And that is like my fuel. He'll talk about if there's a challenge, if there's something stopping you, you got to break the soul of whatever's in front of you. I'm like, okay, I hate insurance. I can do this.
That's fun. So in addition to, Camilla only being months and it's a couple of years, it's been 24 plus months. You have introduced a beautiful baby into the mix as well. Share with us about Paisley.
Oh my gosh, Paisley is the best. I love her. Every now and then I get a little worried though, because she's got a lot of my spice. And like the other day we were working out together. She's like watching me do Pilates and she's trying to do one of the things and she fell. And so she hit the ground and she yelled at it. I'm like, oh no.
Foreshadow for what is to come.
She's like me. So she's just the perfect sister for Camilla. Like, she's a social butterfly. She's so happy to go to all of the doctor's appointments. Camilla lots of times sleeps in and she just like loves everything so big. And if she's mad, then she's mad so big. And I'm like, you're going to be a really good best friend for your sister, really good advocate. She comes out and it's 10 in the morning. Camilla's finally awake. You hear Paisley nearly falling over herself, crawling as fast as she can to go pat her sister on the head and pull her oxygen and be like, hey, look at me, I'm over here.
So when you were expecting Paisley, let me preface this. We had Nash. So Nash is our second child that has Down syndrome. And when we were expecting Ridge, I remember a lot of people asking me, are you going to do, are you going to find out if your child is going to have a special need? Are you worried about that? I remember a lot of those questions coming to me, processing them in my own way. I have to imagine you had similar thoughts or even questions that came from well-meaning individuals and definitely people that love you. Okay, hear your thoughts about that.
So I'm someone that I play music in my head. There's just always like music kind of running in my head. It's my like coping mechanism. And the intro to Crazy in Love by Beyonce, they're like, yes, so crazy, part 2, and that 100% played in my head every time. I was like, if I can play this, then I won't get mad at them for asking something that A, is none of their business. B, they have no idea how close that is to my heart. Yeah. And they're like, just casually in between, getting into both of our cars. So are you going to get genetic testing? Or do you think your life is going to be ruined? I'm like, yeah. No, Camilla don't ruin my life. If this second child is special needs, we've done this before. We know what early intervention is. We know how to work the system. We know what to call for insurance. Like, it's not going to be the same experience. I was mostly worried about having another baby be in the NICU. I wasn't necessarily worried about a specific diagnosis or anything like that, but just because you can't bring kids to the NICU. So it's like, I don't know how I'm going to take care of both. And that was something that weighed really heavy on me. But honestly, when people asked me if I was worried about kids having, like my Paisley and any other kids that we have in the future having another diagnosis, they'd be like, yeah, are you going to get tested? Are you going to get tested? I told them no. And the shock that I would see of, but you're only 22 and don't you need to know? I'm like, why? Because there's so many false positives too with those tests. And Camilla's genetic disorder, we don't even know what it is or where it is. So I'm like, well, would they even test for Paisley? Like, we don't know. So I'm like, I'm not going to give myself false hope. For me, it was like, where do I want to put my trust? And I feel like we're supposed to have this baby that I'm pregnant with. I'm not going to abort them. Doesn't matter what the test says. They're coming into our life with or without a little extra spice. So I don't really need to know. Our whole house is set up for medical equipment already. We already have 3 therapists coming to our house already every week. Nothing will really change. They'll stay for 2 hours instead of 1, and we'll have 2 PT sessions back to back. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's exactly right. How's Carson through all of this? You shared a little bit about him and how awesome of a husband he is. How has Carson handled just the various degrees of uncertainty and just this unique journey?
Yeah. So the NICU, I think, was probably, I want to say it was one of the easier parts, because the NICU is terrible. You know, it's not easier, but his boss is really great. And when Camilla was born, lots of his coworkers dropped everything, came to the hospital, brought us waterproof mascara and chocolates and, you know, things like that. And his boss had given him 2 weeks off and said, you know what, take a month and it's paid. And so Carson was able to be with Camilla through everything at the very beginning. And it was really good for their relationship. And then when we got home and things kind of normalized and he was working more, and at that point he'd switched companies too, he was just like, this is hard. Like, I miss the NICU because I had an excuse to leave early on Fridays, but like, I'm going to go see my kid at the hospital. I got to see her more when she's in the NICU. And now I don't get to see her as much and she sleeps a lot. So if she comes home and she's not down for the night, it's pretty amazing. And he's just missing her a lot. But he's really good asking questions and listening to me talk about the day and knowing what her needs are so that when she's awake, he's like, okay, I know what books he can see really well. So let's get out these books, or I want to tell you a story, or let's go for a drive. Do you want a chocolate shake? Things like that. So I feel like lots of it is just him trying to like live vicariously through me. I send him videos and stuff, and he just does everything that he can to be present, even with just kind of the limits that everybody has of working is work, and it takes your whole day.
Leah, I have one more question that I'd like to ask you before I let you go. In our preparation for this meeting, this conversation, we had you ask or had you answer this question. The question is, what is one thing that you want the world to know about Camilla? And I'm going to read your answer because I think it's a beautiful answer, and I'd love for you to elaborate on this. And that's the question that I'd like to ask. And so I asked, what's one thing you'd like the world to know about Camilla? And you said, assume competence. Just because someone doesn't make eye contact or use words to communicate doesn't mean that they don't understand, care about you, have opinions, want to be included, and have a sense of humor. We elaborate on that because I thought that was a beautiful answer.
Being Camilla's mom is not hard. Other people make it really hard. It's not Camilla, you know. And lots of challenges that we have are people just thinking that she's a vegetable. It blows my mind. I have to imagine myself in an orange jumpsuit and be like, yep, it's not the look. We're going to be like, please it. Like I had somebody come out to us the other day and asked me what's wrong with her. And I was like, okay, you're kind of old. So
I'll give you that.
Know anything. And so I chose to be kind, and I was like, oh, there's nothing wrong with her. Like, God gave her cerebral palsy, and so we love her where she's at. That was my answer. And they were like, oh, well, at least you have one beautiful daughter. Oh, I never wanted to backhand the wrinkles off somebody's head. Like, and so things like that, you know, I'll look at them and be like, you know, she speaks English. Like, she understands you, and that was really rude. And my priority is to make sure that my girls know I don't care more about what strangers think about me. I'm going to have your back. We're a team in our family. And so if someone says something rude to you, and it's not, oh, well, they're grandma. Grandma shouldn't say mean things. Grandma should be kind, you know? So this old lady needs to choose to be kind or keep her mouth shut. And there's just lots of experiences like that people will come up to me and say things like, she's not there. Like, she hears you. She knows what you're saying. Yeah. And I'm so grateful for children. Before having Camilla, I never understood why it was a commandment for us to become like kids. Like, kids scream over Lucky Charms. Why would you want us to become like kids? And now that I have Camilla, you know, we'll go to the zoo. And there's one time we're at the zoo and this group of 8-year-olds came up to me, and one of them asked me why Camilla was kicking her legs, because it looks different. And so I told them, oh, she's working on getting her legs stronger, because she can't walk yet. So she likes to move them to practice. And all of these kids start telling me about how, look how high I can jump. I've been practicing jumping, and I can't jump as high as her, but it's because she's in cheer, so she practices a lot. Look at me, and we're all practicing. And they start telling me about how they can run so fast because they practice running. And I am seeing them like go out of their way to try and be like, hey, she can't walk yet and she's practicing. I practice doing things too. And it's just been such a blessing to see how loving kids are. I'm so grateful that we run into so many kids, that we live in a place where people have lots of kids. And that when we go to the grocery store, kids will ask me, what's on her face? And the moms will say, oh, don't point, don't look at her. And I have this opportunity to say, oh, we ask people questions about themselves, be friends with them, come over and be friends, you know?
Yes.
And it's just really difficult. That's probably the hardest part, is people don't, like, adults don't assume competence. They get used to, oh, if this child isn't looking at me, then they're not listening to me. And so lots of what I do when we're out in public is, though sometimes people come up to her and say, oh, I like your dress. And Camilla will look away and she'll clap her hands. And they just kind of look confused. I'm like, oh, she likes that you're talking to her. Like, she's clapping her hands because she likes that you're talking to her. But she's visually impaired. And so processing new pictures is really hard on her brain. So she's looking away at just the light so she can focus on the sound of your voice.
Yep.
And then people go, oh, okay. And then they take a beat, turn back around and come back and talk to her. So that's just been like, if I could plaster that on my stroller, I would. Assume competence. She literally speaks English. She wants to be friends with you.
That's a beautiful answer. And, you know, as I've gone through this podcast with you, the thought continues to come to my mind, how awesome an advocate, an unstoppable advocate that you are to your family, as I shared in the beginning. But I also feel just an immense sense of gratitude for what an incredible advocate you are to our entire community, to our disability community and our special needs community. So from one special needs parent to another, thank you for the advocacy work that you're doing and being such a strong voice for us, because we need that out there. We're very thankful that you were on the show today, and can't wait to see our paths cross in the future. I'm sure they will, but thank you so much, Leah.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conquering Your Clownfish. If you liked what we discussed on the podcast today and want to continue the conversation, please visit us at conqueringyourclownfish.com. And please don't forget to subscribe.